Don't you dare. My voice, sharp and low, cut through the air before I could stop it. You're not going to deny me this opportunity, I repeated, firmer this time, though my heart hammered against my ribs. I stood frozen in the doorway of Mark Harrington's office. The director of engineering looked up from his meticulously organized desk, a smug, self-satisfied grin spreading across his face that made my stomach clench with a familiar, cold anger. So, this was it. After 12 years of pouring my heart and soul into Innovate Solutions, this was the unceremonious end. My name is Amelia Reed. I'm 52 years old, and for the last 12 years, I've dedicated my career as a principal systems architect to this company. Right here in the heart of Austin's burgeoning tech scene, the so-called Silicon Prairie, I'd navigated 3 major company restructures, weathered 2 brutal economic downturns, and burned the midnight oil more times than I could count. Architecting and refining the very systems that kept this company afloat. Systems like Project Phoenix, which had demonstrably saved millions and secured major clients. I had proven my worth time and time again, measured in tangible results, solid data, increased ROI. Or so I had foolishly believed. Amelia, please, come in and sit down, Mark motioned towards the plush visitor chair opposite his expansive desk. His voice oozed that carefully rehearsed brand of sympathy. The kind they must teach in those superficial management training seminars, devoid of genuine feeling, focused only on managing the situation. We've decided to bring in someone with a different perspective for your role. He paused, choosing his words with calculated ambiguity. After 12 years, the team dynamics need a refresh. It's simply time for a change. The carefully constructed euphemisms hung heavy and suffocating in the artificially cooled air between us. Someone with a different perspective. Not someone more qualified, not someone with more proven experience navigating complex system architectures, just different. Younger. That was the unspoken word echoing in the space Mark refused to fill. A familiar, searing heat of indignation rose in my chest, the injustice tightening my throat, but I forced it down, taking a slow, deliberate breath. Showing emotion now would only play into his narrative. This wasn't the moment for an outburst. It was the moment for cold, hard strategy. I inclined my head calmly, meeting his gaze without flinching. I appreciate you informing me directly, Mark. My measured, almost tranquil response clearly wasn't what he'd anticipated. Mark blinked, momentarily thrown off his internal script. The satisfied glint in his eyes flickered, replaced by a flicker of surprise. Well, good. He recovered quickly, leaning back slightly. I'm glad you're taking this so professionally. The transition period will be approximately 1 month. We'll need you to fully onboard your replacement, Sophia Chen. He checked a note on his screen. She's top of her class, graduating from Carnegie Mellon next week. A thin, almost imperceptible smile touched my lips. A fresh graduate from CMU, brilliant undoubtedly, but with zero real-world experience in managing the labyrinthine systems I had spent years building and optimizing. Replacing my 12 years of proven success with potential. Mark's logic was as flawed as his leadership. Of course, I replied, my voice smooth as glass. I'll ensure a seamless handover. What Mark didn't know, what no one in the entire technology division knew, was that the upcoming quarterly board meeting held a significance far beyond mere departmental updates. It was going to be special. Very special indeed. And I had a front row seat. Will there be a formal announcement regarding this transition? I asked, keeping my tone perfectly level, professional. We plan to announce Sophia's arrival at the division meeting on Monday, Mark replied, already swiveling his chair back towards his dual monitors. His body language screaming dismissal. HR will be in touch regarding the specifics of your severance package. The casual disregard, after 12 years of dedicated service, stung more than the dismissal itself. I rose slowly, deliberately smoothing the fabric of my tailored blazer, a small act to steady myself. I see. My mind raced, piecing together the final elements of the plan Ms. Moretti and I had discussed. And the quarterly board meeting, that's still scheduled for next Thursday at 2 p.m., correct? Mark looked up again, a brief flash of confusion, then suspicion, crossing his face. Why would I care about a meeting I wouldn't be a part of? Yes, it is, he confirmed slowly. But that's no longer relevant to your responsibilities here, Amelia. Just confirming the details on my calendar, I said lightly, offering a dismissive little wave of my hand. Force of habit after all these years. I paused at the door. Will CEO Moretti be presiding as usual? Mark's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. His politician's instincts were kicking in, sensing something amiss, though he couldn't grasp what. Why do you ask, Amelia? His tone was sharper now, less rehearsed sympathy, more cautious probing. Just curious about the company's direction, I replied with an easy shrug, masking the adrenaline coursing through me. Well, I won't keep you any longer. Have a productive afternoon. As I walked out of his office, leaving him staring thoughtfully at his screen, a strange, icy calm settled over me. 12 years at Innovate Solutions hadn't just taught me system architecture, they had taught me patience, resilience, and the critical importance of strategic silence. Knowing precisely when to reveal your hand. The upcoming board meeting would lay everything bare. And Mark Harrington's smug certainty, his belief that he had successfully maneuvered me out, would evaporate faster than the morning mist over Lady Bird Lake. Some secrets, I mused, were not just worth keeping, they were weapons waiting to be deployed. Especially when someone tried to show you the door based on assumptions rather than facts. Walking back through the open plan office towards my workspace, I couldn't suppress a small, wry smile at the sheer, staggering irony of it all. 12 years of dedication, countless successes, culminating in a 15-minute meeting where my value was reduced to my age. Yet here I stood, calm on the surface, holding the key to a future Mark couldn't even begin to imagine. A future where data, competence, and results mattered more than office politics. Everything all right, Amelia? Liam O'Brien, my trusted colleague from the adjacent workstation, leaned over. His voice low and laced with genuine concern. He had that kind, worried look in his eyes, the look of someone who'd seen this particular corporate play unfold too many times from Mark's office. Always ending with someone walking away, shoulders slumped in shock and defeat. Never better, Liam, I replied quietly, ensuring my voice didn't carry. Just the usual Friday afternoon, strategic adjustments. He gave me a skeptical look but didn't press. I hadn't breathed a word to anyone, not even Liam, about the highly confidential video conference with CEO Isabella Moretti 3 weeks prior. It had been entirely unexpected, a direct call request via encrypted channel landing on my personal device late one Sunday afternoon. While I was trying to salvage my wilting tomato plants on my apartment balcony. Amelia, we need to discuss your future trajectory at Innovate Solutions. Ms. Moretti's voice had come through, crisp and direct. Shedding her usual public formality. This requires absolute discretion. Not at the office. Can you join a secure video call tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. sharp? The memory of that encrypted call remained sharp and vivid in my mind. Ms. Moretti, appearing on my screen not from her executive office but a minimalist home study, wasted no time. She had screen-shared dashboards depicting the company's stagnating progress on digital transformation, the missed opportunities in data utilization. I'll get straight to the point, Amelia, she'd stated, her gaze intense even through the screen. The board recognizes the need for a fundamental shift in our technological and operational leadership. Your work, particularly on Project Phoenix, hasn't gone unnoticed. She cited specific KPIs, the ROI figures I myself had presented internally. Your analytical rigor and your ability to execute complex, large-scale system changes under pressure. That's precisely what Innovate needs at the helm right now. I had braced myself for redundancy news, perhaps a forced early retirement package, not this. Praise, yes, but what followed stunned me. Thank you, Ms. Moretti, I managed, my voice sounding distant. But we need more than your technical expertise in your current role, she had continued, leaning slightly closer to her camera. The board has approved the creation of a new C-suite position, Chief Technology and Operations Officer, CTO. And I want you to be the one to fill it, Amelia. The offer was staggering, almost incomprehensible. CTO. A seat at the executive table. Overseeing not just technology but the entire operational pipeline of Innovate Solutions, including Mark Harrington's technology division. Why me? I'd asked, the question automatic, my mind still reeling from the sheer scale of the proposal. Because you see the connections others miss, Ms. Moretti had replied without hesitation. You understand the data, the systems, and the people who make them run. You cut through the political noise and focus on what actually works. And frankly, she added with a wry twist of her lips, it's long past time we had someone leading operations who truly understands the technological foundations of this business and isn't afraid to dismantle legacy thinking. The extreme secrecy had been Ms. Moretti's explicit instruction. The board's final vote next month is largely a formality, given the committee's pre-approval, she'd explained. But Mark has allies, people resistant to change. We need to manage the internal politics carefully. No one outside this conversation, not even my EA, can know until the official announcement at the board meeting. Any leak could give them time to mobilize opposition. So, I had digitally signed the employment contract with only Ms. Moretti and the chief legal counsel privy to the transaction, communicated via secure, end-to-end encrypted channels. For the past 3 intense weeks, I'd participated in clandestine early morning strategy sessions, masked as vendor consultations. On my public calendar, dissecting confidential operational reports, analyzing departmental budgets, and collaboratively drafting the framework for a new, integrated technology and operations strategy after my normal working hours had ended. All while Mark, oblivious, was meticulously plotting my obsolescence. Back in the present, sitting at my familiar workstation, I discreetly checked my secure messaging app. A new message from Isabella, contracts finalized and filed with counsel. Announcement drafts prepared. Thursday remains unchanged. I typed back a single, confirming character, Y. The rest of that Friday afternoon crawled by as I dutifully began compiling transition documentation for my supposed replacement, Sophia. I meticulously organized project files on the shared server, updated documentation in Confluence, and carefully annotated key sections of code in the GitHub repository for Project Phoenix. Mark strolled past my desk twice, a smug, self-congratulatory air radiating from him each time. Let him savor his imagined triumph. It would make the reveal that much sweeter. The real game was just days away, and he didn't even know he was a pawn. The weekend stretched before me. An endless expanse of time filled with nervous energy and meticulous preparation for what I knew would be the most pivotal week of my professional life. Monday morning arrived, cool and bright over the Austin skyline. I arrived at the Innovate Solutions office earlier than usual. Clad in my standard professional attire, a sharply tailored gray pantsuit and a crisp white blouse. Nothing ostentatious, nothing that would betray the seismic shift about to occur in my career trajectory. Blend in. Observe. Execute the plan. The technology division meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. in the main conference room on our floor. I selected my usual seat towards the middle of the long table, visible, but not commanding attention. Just another senior member of the team. Engineers, project managers, and analysts gradually filtered in, the room filling with the familiar buzz of Monday morning caffeine-fueled chatter. Weekend recaps, looming project deadlines, the latest industry buzz, the normal rhythm of our work life. Mark entered last, radiating his usual air of forced bonhomie. Following closely behind him was a young woman I didn't recognize. She looked bright, eager, perhaps a little overwhelmed, barely older than 22 or 23. Her eyes, wide with a mixture of nervousness and excitement, scanned the room, taking in the faces of her new colleagues. Sophia Chen, the CMU star graduate, presumably. Good morning, everyone. Mark announced, clapping his hands together with performative enthusiasm, calling the room to order. Before we dive into our project updates and sprint reviews, I have an important personnel announcement to share. A sudden hush fell over the room. The energy shifted instantly. Several colleagues subtly glanced my way. The grapevine clearly suspected something was afoot concerning my position. I'd like you all to join me in welcoming Sophia Chen to our team, Mark declared, gesturing towards the young woman beside him. Sophia is joining us as a software engineer, bringing fresh perspectives and cutting-edge knowledge from her studies at Carnegie Mellon. He beamed at Sophia, then swept his gaze across the room. Over the next month, Sophia will be onboarding extensively, working closely with Amelia Reed. He paused, letting the implication hang in the air. Amelia will be moving on from Innovate Solutions at the end of this period to pursue other opportunities. There it was. The bland, sterile corporate euphemism for being pushed out, delivered with a veneer of positivity. I kept my expression perfectly neutral, a calm mask I had perfected over years. even as I felt the sympathetic and curious stares of my colleagues land on me. Inside, I cataloged their reactions, noting the discomfort, the surprise, the carefully blank faces. Amelia has been a valuable member of our team for 12 years, Mark continued, his tone dripping with false magnanimity. As if bestowing a great honor by acknowledging my long service before discarding me. And we appreciate her many contributions to our successes. Lies. If he appreciated my contributions, we wouldn't be here. Please make Sophia feel welcome as she transitions into learning about our critical systems. He carefully avoided mentioning the specific role she was supposedly filling. Likely realizing how absurd it sounded to replace a principal architect with a fresh graduate, Sophia offered a small, shy wave to the room. "Hi everyone," she said, her voice bright but a little unsteady. "I'm really excited to be here and learn from all of you. I've heard such amazing things about the work Innovate Solutions does." As the meeting ground on through the standard project updates, status reports, and upcoming quarterly target discussions, I felt Mark's gaze drift towards me periodically. He was likely watching for any sign of weakness, any crack in my composure, tears, anger, resentment. He would find none. Instead, I participated as I always did, offering concise, data-driven insights on Project Phoenix's current phase, clarifying technical dependencies for another team, and even volunteering a potential solution for a tricky integration issue Liam's team was facing. Show them competence, professionalism, right until the very end. After the meeting finally adjourned, Sophia approached my desk tentatively, clutching a new company-issued laptop. "Ms. Reed," she began, looking uncertain. "Mark mentioned you'd be showing me the ropes this week?" "That's the plan," I replied, gesturing towards the empty chair beside my workstation. "And please, call me Amelia." As she settled in, I felt an unexpected pang of sympathy for her. She was clearly intelligent and ambitious, but utterly naive about the corporate maneuvering she'd unwittingly walked into. A pawn in Mark's poorly conceived game. "All right, Sophia," I said, turning towards her with a professional smile. "Let's get started. First thing you need to understand about Innovate Solutions," I began, lowering my voice slightly, "is that navigating the internal landscape can be just as critical as the technical challenges." Sophia looked taken aback by my directness, her eyes widening slightly. "Oh," she stammered. I assumed it was mostly about the code and the systems." A small, genuine smile touched my lips. "It absolutely should be," I agreed softly. "And perhaps, someday soon, it will be again. For now, let's focus on getting you access to the right repositories and documentation." The next 3 days dissolved into a relentless cycle of knowledge transfer. I walked Sophia through system diagrams on shared whiteboards, granted her access to specific Jira boards and Confluence spaces, and meticulously documented critical workflows and dependencies in shared documents, ensuring every step was logged and timestamped. I shared links to relevant code repositories on GitHub, explaining the branching strategies and deployment pipelines. Through it all, I maintained a facade of patient mentorship, answering Sophia's questions thoroughly, even the most basic ones that revealed her lack of practical experience with systems of this scale and complexity. I gave her every piece of information she needed to theoretically do the job, all while knowing she wouldn't hold the responsibility for long. And with every interaction, every simple query about load balancing or database replication strategies I'd spent years optimizing, the conviction grew stronger within me. Mark's decision wasn't just unfair, it was fundamentally reckless. Sophia was bright, yes, but putting her in charge of Project Phoenix, even under supervision, was irresponsible. I made sure to conduct most of our technical discussions via Slack or Teams, creating a searchable, documented record of the information I provided and the questions she asked. Evidence. Just in case. Mark occasionally hovered, stopping by to offer Sophia effusive encouragement. "Great energy, Sophia. Exactly the fresh thinking we need." While pointedly ignoring me or offering clipped, dismissive comments about ensuring the handover was expedited. His eagerness to see me gone was palpable. Liam sent me a private message on Slack late Tuesday. "Heard about the meeting. That's rough. You holding up okay? Anything I can do?" I replied simply, "Appreciate it, Liam." Just focusing on a smooth transition. All good. Keep it professional. Avoid fueling gossip. On Wednesday afternoon, an email notification pinged into everyone's inbox. A company-wide calendar invite from Ms. Moretti's office for a mandatory all-hands town hall meeting on Friday morning. The day after the board meeting. The subject line was brief, exciting organizational updates and future direction. I saw Mark read the message on his monitor, a slight frown creasing his brow. He clearly hadn't been consulted or briefed. He swiveled his chair and caught my eye as I was ostensibly reviewing code with Sophia. "Amelia, do you have any insight into what this town hall is about?" he asked, attempting a casual tone that didn't quite land. "No idea, Mark," I lied smoothly, turning back to my screen. "Could be anything. Maybe they finally secured that big government contract everyone's been speculating about?" He nodded slowly, seemingly satisfied by my feigned ignorance and plausible guess. He walked away, whistling softly, already mentally calculating how he could spin any positive company news to his advantage. Thursday loomed closer. The board meeting. The culmination of weeks of secret planning. The moment the script would finally flip. My pulse quickened ever so slightly. Stay calm. Stay focused. Execute. Thursday morning dawned with an unusual stillness in the Austin air, the sky a vast, pale blue. A peculiar sense of calm washed over me as I drove to the office. I had rehearsed this day in my mind countless times. My outfit was chosen with deliberate care, the tailored charcoal pantsuit I bought specifically for this transition. Paired with a silk blouse in a deep shade of teal, a color that projected quiet confidence. It was undoubtedly an executive look, powerful yet understated, perfectly appropriate for a principal architect attending her final meetings. Yet hinting at something more. I arrived at the Innovate Solutions building to find that farewell gathering already underway in the small conference room near the tech division's area. Not even the main break room. Mark's penny pinching was legendary. A truly pathetic spread adorned the table, a box of slightly crushed grocery store cupcakes, a lukewarm carafe of drip coffee, and a stack of paper plates. The forced smiles and awkward silences were almost suffocating. A large card lay open, filled with generic, hastily scrawled well wishes and vague recollections of shared project deadlines. I accepted the card and the mumbled condolences with practiced grace, playing my assigned role in this hollow corporate ritual. This wasn't a celebration of my contributions, it was a perfunctory checking of a box before sweeping me out the door. "We're really going to miss you, Amelia," Liam said, pulling me aside for a brief, awkward side hug. His sincerity felt like a small anchor in the sea of insincerity. "It seriously won't be the same without you untangling Mark's messes." He winked conspiratorially. "Thank you, Liam," I replied softly, meaning it. "I'll miss working with you too." There were good people here, caught in the gears of Mark's ambition. Mark himself lingered near the doorway, conspicuously checking his watch every few minutes. The board meeting was at 2 p.m. And he needed time to prep his quarterly presentation, the one based on the reporting framework I had largely designed years ago. A fact he conveniently forgot. "Amelia," he called out, his voice cutting through the low murmur of conversation. "Could I see you in my office for a moment when you're finished here?" He didn't wait for my reply, simply turned and strode down the hallway, commanding, even in his dismissal. 15 minutes later, I sat opposite him once more, the visitor chair feeling alien after 12 years. He shuffled a stack of papers, avoiding eye contact. "Amelia, I just wanted to formally thank you for handling this transition with professionalism," he began, the words sounding rehearsed. "It's refreshing. Considering your long tenure with the company." That subtle, deliberate emphasis on a tenure again. The thinly veiled code 4H. My jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. It seemed the only appropriate response. "Mark," I replied, my voice perfectly even, betraying none of the contempt simmering beneath the surface. He finally met my gaze, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "Your severance package is quite generous," he continued, reciting the details as if bestowing a personal favor. 2-month salary, plus payout for all your accrued vacation time. The final paperwork will be ready for your signature tomorrow morning. "I appreciate the company's standard policy being followed," I replied coolly, refusing to give him the satisfaction of appearing grateful for his decision. He leaned back in his chair, clasping his hands behind his head, a calculated pose of relaxed authority. Curiosity finally seemed to override his discomfort. I have to admit, Amelia, I'm surprised. You've been remarkably composed about this entire situation. Did you anticipate this change? I allowed a small, enigmatic smile to play on my lips. Let him wonder. Let him feel a prickle of doubt. Let's just say, Mark, that 12 years here have taught me the importance of preparing for all possible scenarios. His expression hardened almost instantly. The smile vanished. Well, the needs of the business evolve, he stated curtly, falling back on corporate platitudes. New strategies require fresh perspectives. I'm sure someone with your experience understands. Completely, I agreed smoothly, mirroring his corporate speak. Change is indeed the only constant in our industry. Sometimes, it originates from directions one might not expect. His eyes narrowed again at my deliberately cryptic response. He sensed a hidden meaning but couldn't grasp it. Before he could formulate another probing question, his phone chimed, a calendar reminder. Saved by the bell. Right, he said briskly, glancing at the notification. I need to finalize my presentation for the board meeting. Of course, I said, rising smoothly from the chair. Best of luck with your presentation, Mark. I paused at the door, turning back slightly. I've always found the board members to be quite meticulous. They pay close attention to the underlying data. I walked out without looking back, but I could feel his gaze fixed on me, a newfound sliver of uncertainty beginning to erode his smug confidence. My calm acceptance, my subtle provocations, they had planted a seed of doubt. Exactly as intended. Back at my workstation, a secure message alert popped up on my personal phone. Isabella Moretti, exec entrance, conference room A, 1:30 p.m. sharp. The final countdown had begun. I spent the next 2 hours methodically cleaning out my physical desk drawers, archiving personal files onto an encrypted drive, and putting the finishing touches on the handover documentation for Sophia, saving it to the shared drive with clear instructions. To any casual observer, I was simply a departing employee diligently completing her final tasks. At precisely 1:15 p.m., I picked up my sleek leather portfolio, containing not just my personal items, but also a tablet loaded with the CTO transition plan and supporting data analysis. I headed towards the restrooms down the hall. A perfectly normal, unremarkable action that wouldn't draw a second glance. Once safely out of sight of the main technology division workspace, I changed direction. Bypassing the main elevators and heading towards the secure executive lift at the far end of the corridor. It ascended silently to the top floor, the domain of the C-suite. The executive suite landing was hushed, carpeted in plush gray, with frosted glass walls hinting at the power brokers within. It possessed its own private, discreet entrance to the main boardroom, a heavy oak door I had never passed through in my 12 years at Innovate Solutions. Until today. Isabella Moretti stood waiting for me in the quiet hallway, just outside the boardroom entrance. Her usual intensely focused expression was softened slightly by a spark of anticipation in her eyes. Ready to rewrite the narrative, Amelia? She asked quietly, her voice resonating with shared purpose. I took a slow, grounding breath, feeling the immense weight and exhilarating potential of the moment settle upon me. As ready as I'll ever be, Isabella. Perfect, she replied with a brief, decisive nod, glancing at her watch. The other board members are assembling. Mr. Carter is already there. Mark is scheduled to enter through the main public entrance at exactly 2 p.m., none the wiser. Let's ensure we're comfortably seated before he arrives. Together, two women prepared to fundamentally alter the power structure of Innovate Solutions. We walked towards the imposing executive entrance of Conference Room A, the room where everything was about to change. The main boardroom at Innovate Solutions was designed to impress, perhaps even intimidate. High-tech, yet steeped in an air of established power. 12 ergonomic, high-backed leather chairs were arranged around a massive, polished composite table embedded with touch screens and charging ports. Floor-to-ceiling smart glass windows currently offered a stunning, unobscured panoramic view of the Austin skyline. A glittering testament to the company's ambitions, but could be frosted for privacy with a tap. By 1:45 p.m., 10 board members were seated, their pre-meeting chatter a low hum of strategic murmurs and updates. Isabella gave a subtle nod towards the empty chair strategically positioned directly to her right, my designated seat as incoming CTO. A momentary wave of nervous energy washed over me as I slid into the expensive leather, the reality hitting me with full force. This was happening. The feeling quickly subsided as several board members offered welcoming smiles and nods of recognition. Benjamin Carter, the distinguished, silver-haired chairman of the board, leaned over slightly and extended his hand across the table. He must have been around 72, his eyes sharp and assessing behind rimless glasses. "Ms. Reed, Amelia," he greeted me warmly, his voice carrying quiet authority. "We're very pleased to finally have you formally join this table. Isabella has spoken exceptionally highly of your strategic insights and your grasp of our operational challenges." "Thank you, Mr. Carter," I replied, my voice steady and clear despite the tremor I felt deep inside. "I deeply appreciate this significant opportunity and the board's confidence." Over the next 10 minutes, Isabella efficiently introduced me to each board member individually. Most knew my name and reputation from my work on Project Phoenix or previous high-level project briefings. But this interaction felt fundamentally different. I wasn't here to present or report, I was now one of them, a peer, poised to take on a critical leadership role. The atmosphere was one of anticipation, not tension. They were expecting this. At precisely 2 p.m., the main, heavier door on the opposite side of the room swung open. Mark entered, clutching a folder of presentation materials, his face arranged in a mask of confident preparedness. He exchanged brief greetings with a couple of board members near the entrance as he began circling the table, placing printed copies of his quarterly report at each setting. His practiced smile was firmly in place. Then, his gaze swept further down the table and landed squarely on me, sitting beside the CEO, in the CTO's designated chair. The transformation of his expression was a fascinating, almost cinematic sequence compressed into seconds. Polite recognition flickering into confusion, then morphing into stunned disbelief, which quickly curdled into dawning, horrified alarm. His confident stride faltered. "Amelia," he choked out, his voice cracking slightly, pitched noticeably higher than usual. What are you doing here?" Before I could utter a single, carefully chosen word, Isabella rose smoothly to her feet, instantly commanding the room's undivided attention. "Let's bring the meeting to order," she announced, her voice calm but resonant. She gestured towards the remaining empty seat across from me. "Please take your seat, Mark." Mark remained frozen for a beat, his eyes darting wildly between Isabella and me, his brain clearly struggling to process this impossible reality. The carefully constructed narrative he'd built for himself was crumbling before his eyes. "Mark, please," Isabella repeated, her tone gaining a slight edge of impatience. She waited until he finally, numbly, sank into the chair before she continued, addressing the entire board. "As you are all aware, Innovate Solutions is embarking on a significant strategic realignment to ensure our leadership in the market and accelerate our digital transformation. Following extensive analysis and deliberation by the executive committee," she paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "We have identified the need for stronger, unified leadership across our technology and operations divisions." Mark fidgeted, picking at a loose thread on his report folder, his gaze fixed firmly on the tabletop. He wasn't looking at me anymore. He couldn't. To spearhead this critical integration and drive future innovation, Isabella continued, her voice ringing with conviction. "We required an executive with deep institutional knowledge, proven, data-driven technical leadership, exceptional strategic vision, and the demonstrated ability to bridge operational silos." She turned slightly, gesturing towards me. "Therefore, I am absolutely thrilled to announce that Amelia Reed has accepted the newly created position of Chief Technology and Operations Officer for Innovate Solutions. Effective immediately." A wave of polite, affirmative applause rippled around the table. Several board members nodded directly at me, smiling warmly. Mr. Carter added his own approving murmur. As CTO, Isabella elaborated, leaving no room for ambiguity, Amelia will have oversight of the entire technology division, including all engineering teams, IT infrastructure, and data analytics, as well as production, supply chain logistics, and quality assurance. All relevant directors, including the Director of Engineering, she paused, letting the implication land squarely on Mark, will report directly to Amelia, fostering a more agile, data-informed, and cohesive operational structure. The blood had completely drained from Mark's face, leaving it a sickly, pale gray. I wasn't aware. He stammered, his voice barely a whisper. This level of reorganization wasn't discussed. The final decision was ratified by the executive committee 3 weeks ago, Mark, Isabella replied coolly, her gaze unwavering. Dissemination was managed on a strictly need-to-know basis to ensure alignment before the formal board announcement today. Mr. Carter leaned forward slightly, adding his gravitas to the announcement. Amelia's appointment received the unanimous and enthusiastic endorsement of the executive committee, Mark. Her first official mandate as CTO will be to conduct a thorough, data-driven review of all departments under her purview, identifying key areas for optimization, process improvements, and strategic investment to enhance overall efficiency and innovation. Finally, I spoke, ensuring my voice was calm, professional, and measured, projecting competence, not triumph. Thank you, Ms. Moretti, Mr. Carter, and the members of the board. I am eager to begin collaborating closely with all the directors and their teams to optimize our end-to-end operations. I deliberately let my gaze sweep across the table, pausing briefly on Mark. I firmly believe everyone brings unique value to innovate solutions. Sometimes, unlocking that full potential simply requires ensuring individuals are in the right roles, supported by the right processes, and focused on the right strategic objectives. Mark's eyes flickered up to meet mine for a brief, agonizing second. He understood the unspoken message perfectly. His division was now mine. His recent personnel decisions, specifically, his decision to replace me, were now subject to my immediate review and potential reversal. His authority had just evaporated. Now, Isabella declared smoothly, seamlessly pivoting the meeting forward, let's move on to the quarterly departmental reports. She nodded towards Mark. Mark, I believe the technology division update is first on the agenda. Mark pushed himself to his feet, his movements stiff and uncoordinated. He fumbled with his presentation folder, dropping a few pages onto the floor. The confident, politically savvy director who had casually dismissed my 12 years of service just days ago was utterly gone. In his place stood a man visibly shaken, suddenly forced to confront the disastrous consequences of his own arrogance and miscalculation. Actually, Mark, before you begin, I interjected, my voice gentle but firm, cutting through his flustered attempts to gather his papers. I believe it would be prudent to address the proposed staffing changes within the technology division that you actioned earlier this week. Specifically, regarding the principal systems architect role. My eyes swept the table, ensuring I had the board's attention. Given the potential impact on project timelines and resource allocation outlined in your report, perhaps we should revisit those decisions now? A thick, uncomfortable silence descended upon the room. All eyes turned to Mark. He cleared his throat, a visible bead of sweat trickling down his temple despite the cool air conditioning. Perhaps, he suggested, his voice strained and thin, it would be more appropriate to discuss specific departmental staffing matters offline. After this meeting? Normally, I might agree, I replied, maintaining a neutral, almost helpful tone. However, since the reassignment directly impacts the Q3 and Q4 projections, resource allocation, and risk assessments you are about to present for Project Phoenix, addressing it now seems essential for context. I turned slightly to address Mr. Carter and the rest of the board directly. Mark's proposal involved replacing the incumbent principal systems architect, the role I held until accepting the CTO position, with a recent graduate, Sophia Chen, who, while academically brilliant, possesses no prior industry experience managing systems of this scale or complexity. Several board members exchanged uneasy glances. A low murmur rippled around the table. Project Phoenix is entering its most critical integration and deployment phase, I continued calmly, laying out the facts. Introducing inexperienced personnel into a key leadership role at this juncture introduces significant, and frankly, unnecessary risks to the project's timeline, budget, and ultimate success. Mr. Carter frowned, his expression serious. Is this an accurate representation, Mark? He questioned sharply. My understanding is that the Phoenix contract is one of our most significant revenue streams for the next fiscal year, close to 20%. Mark's presentation folder visibly trembled in his grasp. His carefully prepared narrative was useless now. I believed, he stammered, avoiding eye contact, that introducing fresh perspectives could potentially benefit the team's dynamic. The words sounded hollow, weak, even to his own ears. But, obviously, he added quickly, attempting to salvage the situation, given this new organizational structure. We can certainly reassess that personnel decision. Indeed, I agreed smoothly, nodding slightly. Reassessment is wise. In fact, anticipating the need for experienced leadership continuity on Phoenix. I have already had a preliminary discussion with Chloe Jones about stepping up to lead the technical architecture for the project. I saw recognition and approval flicker across the faces of several board members who knew Chloe's reputation. Chloe's 15 years of hands-on experience, particularly her deep expertise in database architecture and system security, coupled with her intimate familiarity with the Phoenix specifications from its inception, make her the unequivocally logical and lowest-risk choice to ensure project success. Isabella nodded decisively. Chloe Jones is an outstanding lead engineer, she affirmed, lending her weight to my recommendation. I fully support Amelia's decision. The look of utter defeat washing over Mark's face was stark and undeniable. Checkmate. Somehow, he managed to stumble through his quarterly report, but the damage was done. His usually smooth, confident delivery was fractured, replaced by halting speech, frequent nervous glances at his notes, and vague, unsubstantiated claims about future synergies and potential optimizations. When he finally finished, the questions from the board members were sharp, pointed, and occasionally overtly critical, demanding specific data points he couldn't provide. It was a stark, brutal contrast to the easy, congratulatory reception his presentations typically enjoyed. As the meeting progressed through the other departmental updates, I listened intently, making careful notes on my tablet and interjecting with thoughtful, strategic questions that subtly demonstrated my comprehensive grasp of the company's intricate operational landscape, from supply chain logistics to software deployment cycles. By the time we reached the agenda item for new business, the power dynamic in the room had irrevocably shifted. Board members increasingly directed their operational and technological questions to me, often bypassing Isabella or the other department heads entirely. They recognized where the real knowledge and strategic thinking now resided. Near the meeting's conclusion, Isabella introduced one final, strategically placed agenda item. As part of our commitment to fostering a dynamic and resilient organization, she announced, we will be implementing a renewed focus on reviewing each division's age demographics, talent development pipelines, and succession planning strategies. Recent internal data analysis, commissioned by my office, she continued, gesturing towards the main screen where a compelling graph appeared, strongly suggests that our most innovative and highest-performing project teams consistently exhibit significant cross-generational collaboration and diversity of experience. The graph clearly showed teams with a mix of senior and junior talent outperforming homogeneous groups in terms of project delivery times and budget adherence. As you can see, Isabella stated plainly, teams blending deep experience with fresh perspectives achieve quantifiably better results. Amelia, as CTO, will be leading a new initiative to partner with all directors to ensure we are actively cultivating and leveraging this crucial age diversity throughout Innovate Solutions. My gaze briefly met Mark's across the expanse of the table. His face was impassive, but his eyes held a flicker of dawning comprehension. This wasn't just about my promotion, it was a fundamental shift in the company's values, implicitly condemning his age-based decision-making. Experience and new perspectives are both invaluable assets when integrated effectively, I stated clearly, addressing the entire board but ensuring Mark heard every word. I look forward to working collaboratively with all directors to optimize their team compositions for maximum innovation and performance, ensuring fair evaluation based on merit and contribution, regardless of tenure. The meeting finally adjourned at 4:30 p.m. As board members began gathering their belongings, networking in small groups, Mark approached me hesitantly, his usual confident stride replaced by a shuffling uncertainty. Amelia, he began, his voice stiff and low. Congratulations on the promotion. He couldn't quite meet my eyes. Had I known this was in development, you would have made different decisions regarding my role? I finished the sentence for him calmly, keeping my expression neutral. Yes, he admitted quietly, nodding. I understand completely, Mark. He shifted uncomfortably. About Sophia Chen. She's clearly bright and talented, but very inexperienced for the complexity of Project Phoenix, I stated matter-of-factly. I believe her potential would be better nurtured within our structured junior engineer development program, rather than throwing her into a principal-level project prematurely. I paused, letting the implication hang. Don't you agree, Mark? He knew he had no leverage, no alternative. His authority was gone. Yes, he conceded tightly. Of course. That makes sense. I'll inform her of the change in assignment immediately. No need, I replied smoothly, asserting my new authority gently but firmly. As CTO, I plan to personally welcome all new hires joining the teams under my purview. I have already scheduled a meeting with Sophia for tomorrow morning to discuss her actual role as a software engineer and set appropriate onboarding goals and expectations. Just then, Isabella joined us, effectively signaling the end of our uncomfortable exchange. Amelia, she said warmly, placing a light hand on my arm. The executive team is gathering for a celebratory dinner at the Summit Grill downtown at 7 o'clock. We'd be thrilled if you could join us. I would be delighted, Isabella, I replied, gathering my portfolio. As Mark turned and walked away, shoulders slumped, Isabella watched him go with a cool, calculating expression. He'll either adapt quickly to the new reality, she observed quietly, turning back to me, or he'll find himself increasingly sidelined. Everyone ultimately faces the consequences of their choices, Isabella, I replied softly, the weight of the day finally beginning to settle. Some just face them sooner, and more publicly, than others. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the Austin landscape as I exited the boardroom through the executive entrance. Not as an employee being pushed out, but as the new Chief Technology and Operations Officer. Tomorrow, the company-wide town hall would formalize my position to everyone at Innovate Solutions. But today's dramatic reversal, the quiet satisfaction of seeing competence and strategy prevail over petty politics and prejudice, was profoundly gratifying. The 12 years I had poured into this company had finally yielded their return, just not in the way Mark Harrington, with his smug grin and outdated assumptions, could ever have possibly conceived. Friday morning arrived with an electric buzz crackling through the large auditorium typically used for major company events. It was also being live-streamed to accommodate remote employees, a true hybrid town hall meeting. Employees from every department, from marketing to finance to the engineers on my own floor, gathered. Their faces alight with curiosity and speculation fueled by the vague email invitation about exciting organizational updates. Whispers and phone checking filled the air. I stood backstage with Isabella and the rest of the executive team, feeling remarkably centered. I wore a tailored navy pantsuit that felt both authoritative and authentically me. Feeling ready? Isabella asked, giving my shoulder a reassuring squeeze as she adjusted her own blazer. Surprisingly, yes, I replied with a calm smile. This feels right. Earned. At precisely 9 a.m., Isabella strode onto the stage to a wave of enthusiastic applause. I watched from the wings as she masterfully set the stage, articulating a compelling vision for Innovate Solutions' future, emphasizing agility, data-driven decisions, digital transformation, and fostering a truly inclusive culture of innovation. And to lead the critical integration of our technology and operations, ensuring we execute on this bold vision, Isabella announced, her voice resonating with genuine excitement. I am incredibly proud and pleased to introduce Innovate Solutions' new Chief Technology and Operations Officer, Amelia Reed. As I walked onto the stage, blinking against the bright lights, the reaction from the assembled employees was immediate, powerful, and overwhelmingly positive. A surge of applause erupted, louder and more sustained than before. Engineers I'd collaborated with for years, the ones deep in the technical trenches, were on their feet, cheering. Project managers who knew firsthand my ability to salvage complex projects beamed. Even the support staff, whom I'd always treated with respect, clapped enthusiastically. It wasn't just polite corporate applause, it felt like genuine relief and validation. I spotted Mark sitting stone-faced in the third row, clapping mechanically, his expression utterly unreadable. A man adrift in a future he hadn't anticipated. Thank you, I began, my voice steady as I stepped up to the podium, waiting for the applause to gently subside. Thank you, Isabella, and thank you all. For 12 years, I've had the distinct privilege of being an architect here, solving complex problems alongside many of you at Innovate Solutions. Today, I am deeply honored and incredibly excited to step into this new role, helping to architect our collective future. I proceeded to outline my vision, building on Isabella's themes but grounding them in tangible operational realities. I spoke about breaking down silos, empowering teams with better data and tools, streamlining processes, and investing in talent development at all levels. Both deep experience and fresh perspectives hold tremendous value, I stated clearly, my gaze sweeping across the audience, briefly pausing as it passed over Mark. Our true competitive advantage lies in effectively harnessing both, creating an environment where collaboration thrives, and where every employee feels valued and empowered to contribute their best work, based on merit and impact. The message seemed to resonate. After the main presentation concluded and Isabella opened the floor for a Q&A session, numerous hands shot up, both in the auditorium and virtually via the chat interface projected onto the side screens. The questions were insightful, focused on implementation details, technology roadmaps, and cross-functional collaboration, signaling genuine engagement and cautious optimism. Later, as the town hall wrapped up and employees began dispersing, many approached the stage to offer personal congratulations and words of encouragement. It was humbling and invigorating. Sophia Chen waited patiently near the edge of the stage, looking slightly wide-eyed and uncertain. "Ms. Reed." "I mean, Amelia," she began tentatively as I stepped down. "Wow. Congratulations. I'm a little unclear about my role now, given everything." I offered her a reassuring smile. "Thank you, Sophia. Let's connect properly in my new office in about an hour. We need to discuss your actual role as a software engineer and map out a productive onboarding plan for you within our junior engineer development program. You have tremendous potential, and I want to ensure we set you up for success in the right way, not just throw you into the deep end." Her shoulders relaxed visibly with relief. "Okay. Thank you. That sounds much better, actually." As the crowd finally thinned, I caught sight of Liam across the auditorium. He gave me a huge, knowing grin and a triumphant thumbs up. Maybe he had suspected more than he let on. His quiet support meant a lot. The transition into the CTO role unfolded with surprising smoothness in the following days, perhaps because the need for change was so widely felt, or perhaps because Isabella and I had laid the groundwork so carefully. By Monday morning, I was settling into the spacious corner office on the top floor, previously occupied by a retiring SVP. The panoramic view of the Austin Hills was breathtaking, a stark contrast to the functional but uninspiring view from my former workstation. Yet, the first thing I placed on the wide, modern desk was the small, resilient jade plant that had sat on my previous desks for 12 years, surviving numerous office moves and project crises alongside me. A tangible link to my roots, a reminder of the journey. Some continuity, I mused, was essential. My first official week as CTO was a whirlwind of back-to-back meetings. I met individually with each director now reporting to me, including a brief, strictly professional session with Mark, diving deep into their team structures, ongoing projects, strategic priorities, and perceived operational bottlenecks. I made it a priority to be physically present and visible, walking the floors of different departments, stopping for informal chats in the break rooms, making it clear that the C-suite wasn't an isolated ivory tower. This wasn't just about gathering information, it was about signaling a cultural shift towards accessibility and open communication, dismantling the invisible barriers that had often separated leadership from the people doing the actual work. Mark, as expected, was noticeably subdued during our one-on-one. He kept his answers brief, focused entirely on pre-approved departmental metrics, and avoided any direct eye contact or reference to our previous interactions. I deliberately kept the tone professional and forward-looking, offering no hint of gloating or retribution, treating him exactly as I treated every other director, with respect for the role, while holding him accountable for results. Let his own actions be his judge. Late Friday afternoon, Isabella stopped by my new office, carrying 2 steaming mugs of coffee from the high-end espresso machine downstairs. "So," she said, sinking into one of the comfortable visitor chairs opposite my desk, 1 full week as CTOO. How does the view look from up here? She asked, a twinkle in her eye. Challenging, I replied honestly, taking a grateful sip of the excellent coffee. But incredibly energizing. There's so much potential here, Isabella. So many opportunities to streamline, innovate, and truly integrate our operations. She nodded, looking genuinely pleased. The initial feedback from the board has been extremely positive. Benjamin Carter, in particular, was impressed with your strategic approach and your ability to ask precisely the right, sometimes difficult questions during the departmental reviews. Well, I admitted with a small smile. I've had 12 years to observe and mentally catalog all the things I would do differently if I ever had the chance. Isabella laughed softly, a warm, genuine sound. That, Amelia, she said, leaning forward slightly, is exactly why you were the only choice for this role. She paused, her expression shifting slightly. Oh, and on a related note, I thought you should be aware. Mark Harrington submitted a formal request for a transfer earlier today. He's asking to relocate to our smaller Seattle office. Running away? I asked, raising an eyebrow slightly, though the news wasn't entirely unexpected. He cited compelling personal and family reasons, Isabella replied dryly, mirroring my skepticism. But yes, we both know the real reason. He can't handle reporting to you. I considered the news for a moment, swirling the coffee in my mug. Allowing him to stay, constantly undermining or resisting change, would be counterproductive. Let's approve the transfer, Isabella, I said decisively. A clean break might be best for everyone involved. Sometimes, I added thoughtfully, a fresh start, even one prompted by difficult circumstances, offers the best path forward. Isabella raised her coffee mug in a silent toast. Spoken like a true leader, Amelia. Welcome, officially, to the C-suite.